Welcome, 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 everyone. We are super excited to welcome you to the 5th day of the Team Coaching Global Summit. And this is our first session of today, and it's the arc of nearly everything with Neil Scotton. This is 𝗘𝗃𝗲 and 𝗏𝗏 from the Team Coaching Global Alliance hosting this session. Feel free to say hi and in the chat and where you are joining us from. We will have 45 minutes together, so please keep your microphone on mute to avoid distractions. And let's move on and introduce our speaker today. Neil is all about enabling powerful change in gentle ways. He coaches, writes, walks, grows veggies, plays guitars, does Tai Chi, and hugs his family. I will add here that for everyone who has a conversation with Neil, he will feel that every conversation with him is like also a big warm hug. He's a professional coach for more than 20 years, winning awards for his contributions to the profession. He works internationally, supporting people who are up to good things in the world and those embracing rich, meaningful, fulfilling lives. He's increasingly known for sharing free things that enable deeper and often life-changing conversations. Maybe you have heard of the Neil's Wheel, one of these free things that he has offered to the world of coaching. And today he's offering another one, the arc of nearly everything. When Neil is not working, you'll often find him amongst trees, by lakes, and sitting watching the birds and the sky. And today, we have the pleasure to find him in our session. So please use the chat to say hi, where you are joining us from. And if you have any comments and questions as we move on with the session, we can use also the chat. So Neil, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, 𝗏𝗏. Thank you. It's very kind of you. And hello, everybody. It's really good to see you here. I notice a lot of the cameras are off, and I completely understand that. And it's lovely to see where you're from, so that I can imagine. We've got the US and Berlin, Paris, Tunisia, Singapore, France. So I'm just letting that sink in terms of, wow, what a wonderful audience. So yes, so good morning or good afternoon or good evening for wherever you are. I'm going to share something today which in some ways is really, really easy. And I'd be interested in your response because it may be, oh, well, obviously, or, I don't get it. And for some people, it's, wow, that's profound. So however this lands with you is entirely okay. Entirely okay. By way of quick background, this first formed in my mind as best as I can remember it around the late 90s and early 2000s when I was on a leadership development program, and the trainer described something saying a weakness is a strength overplayed. So the idea that actually the things that we think are the weaknesses have a strength behind them, and something may have been just turned up a bit too much. Now, I was an engineer at the time. We were having a chat before going live here. So I'm a mechanical engineer by first profession. And so quite a visual mind. And I started thinking, what does that actually look like? How can that actually be represented? So we're going to be exploring that. But as we go live, I'm just going to share here. Okay, here we go. And I want today to be a really real conversation. We're talking here in a team context. You're going to have lots of experiences around teams, one way or another. And so let's work with live, real subjects. So please write in the chat qualities and behaviors that you believe are important in a high-functioning team. What are they? And on the other side, the qualities and behaviors of a low-functioning team. What do you think those are? And also, let's really open it up. Anything else that you believe is important in being part of a team, leading a team, supporting a team? What's true for you there? I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see some of the chat that's coming in here. Again, thank you. Oh, Australia, my goodness. Nigeria, fantastic. Okay, what is an arc? You will find out what an arc is. So thank you, 𝗏𝗵𝗵. Okay, here we go. Communication, conversations. I'm going to write some of these down. Communication, conversations. Okay, trust, mutual respect. Brilliant. Leading without leading. Okay. Right. That's a lovely one for this example, actually. Okay, collaboration. Open to other perspectives. Okay, these are all the good ones. Are there any bad ones out there? Well, I'm assuming they're good ones. Reflective. Okay, 9 new messages. Daring to say. Okay. Wonderful. Honesty. There's an interesting. Lovely. Sense of mission. Wow, here we go. Fantastic. Some wonderful, wonderful words there. Brilliant. Thank you. Let's go back to the presentation. And let me show you the arc. It started, I call this the graph of everything. So we've got 2 axes. We've got a horizontal axis, a simple line. And we've got a vertical axis. Again, a simple line. And a smiley face and a sad face. And I'll let you decide what those mean for you. We will unpack this a little more as we go about what it could mean, but you decide for yourself, what does that mean in the context, for example, of working with a team? And we're simply looking at what may be moving between more and less of something. And to answer the question, I think it was 𝗏𝗵𝗵, that is an arc, a rainbow shape, simply that. And I thought, yes, you may be completely underwhelmed by this. What does that mean? That's okay. Let's take some of these questions. Communication. If we don't communicate at all, we're unlikely to have a well-functioning team. So we need to have some communication. But can we over-communicate? Can we share too much? Can we spend too much time sending emails, long emails, lots of other data that doesn't need to be, isn't important to everybody? What's going on there? Can we overdo this? Let's go to the next one. Conversations. If we don't talk, well, it's going to be hard to be a team. So we talk and talk. But can we talk too much? Can we just keep talking and not focus on things? What, maybe not. Remember, it's called the arc of nearly everything. And there's a total freedom for yourself to say, no, that doesn't apply. This is either good or this is bad. But just go with me with the idea. Trust. If we don't trust each other, it can be really hard to work as a team. So trust is important. But can we over-trust each other? Can we be afraid to say, really? Is that true? Can you actually do that? Is that really possible? Is that really going to happen by Friday? Maybe with mutual respect as well. No mutual respect may be a problem. This may be, actually, it's just great to have mutual respect. I really like the sound of that one. But it may be, again, that mutual respect gets in the way of challenging each other and saying, I don't think you're right, actually. You may have got that one wrong. I don't know. Reflections, reflective. If we don't reflect, yeah, absolutely. We may be missing so much learning. We may be moving so fast. But can we get to a point where we go beyond being wonderful at reflecting and actually we're spending so much time reflecting and looking back and analyzing, we're not moving forward? Do you see the idea? That all of these things, leading is a great one. Okay, let's play with this one. If I don't lead in a team, yeah, it could be chaos. So it's important to lead. But can I overlead? Can my leading stop the participation of others? Can me, by leading too much, get in the way of other people? Could it deny someone the opportunity of growing their own leadership experience? When is the point when I step back as a leader and let other people lead this? Am I being too heroic? Collaboration. no collaboration, well, it's hardly a team, is it? So collaboration is really important. But can there be a point of too much collaboration when actually, right, you please go off and do this, and who wants to take that task? Great. Who wants to take that task? Great. And 5 people go and do something by themselves and then come back at some time in the future and tell everyone what they've done. Does everything have to be done as a team? Maybe, maybe not. But hopefully you see the idea of what's going on with this. This isn't a new concept in many ways. Here are some ideas in words, some old sayings that I'm familiar with. As I said, a weakness is a strength overplayed. You can get too much of a good thing. There's a point of diminishing returns. If I keep spending more money or more time or whatever, more research, am I still learning more? If I spend more, am I actually getting more after a certain point? In spiritual traditions, a time for everything. There's a lovely book, I think it's a lovely book in the Bible called ~Ecclesiastes, and it makes a big point about this. There's a time for everything. My understanding around the Buddhist tradition about choosing the middle way, this has been here a long time. My Tai Chi instructor, who unfortunately died during COVID, had a lovely expression when we were asking, Paul, how far do I stretch? How fast do I move? No more and no less than is necessary. How far do I put weight? How much weight do I put on this? No more and no less than is necessary. I find that a beautiful wisdom. Personally, I find that by trying to adopt more of this, recognizing there is a natural arc to almost everything, brings to a really lovely point of living and working. I think Paul's really captured it here. No more and no less is necessary. But here, we've got people from all around the world. So I'm just going to go quiet for a minute or so and start looking at the chat, because I'd love to know, do you have more examples? Maybe you've got an example around this from your family, from your community, from your culture, from your spiritual tradition, whatever it may be. Let's just see if this is more of a global thing. I've got complete curiosity here. I've got no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to come off share again so I can watch the chat. Okay. Can I have too much reflection? Overthinking? No. Okay. Yeah. Aha! This is Helen you. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Helen. So yeah. So feel free to arc of one's career. Oh boy, yes, you can open this out. Is there an arc of your career? Is there an arc of your life? How much energy I've got? I start off needing support. I go through life and I give support to others. If I lead a natural life, hopefully live long enough for a natural death, there will be a time when I need the support of others towards the end of it. Yes. Too much, too little, or just enough. Yes, there you go. Is that a saying, Dawn? Thank you. Yeah. Strategizing versus overanalyzing. Yes. Economic growth within boundaries of the planet. Yes. Growth is good. Well, it is. But can we have too much growth? Yeah. Can too much empathy become sympathy? There's a good question. I know plenty of people that I've shared this with who are involved in caring professions who would certainly recognize compassion fatigue, for example. There you go. Or compassion fatigue. Thank you, Katerina. We think as one. We're in deep rapport. Analysis paralysis. Yes, there we go. Okay, so you've got some examples. You see where this is going? Okay. Let's go a little deeper. I'm going to start the sharing again. Okay. I'm going to introduce a few more ideas in the time we've got about flourishing, a thing I call the gap and the 5 freedoms. But before there, we'll just open up a little more around what we've shared so far. So we've got the horizontal line, we've got the vertical line. Now let's have a think about these faces. What do these mean? And I could phrase the question, what do these mean for you? But in the context of a team, what do they mean for the team? And are these agreed as a team, or are people looking at different things? So is this about how productive we're being as a team, or how happy we are as a team? Or are we being very healthy? Healthy relationships, as well as physically healthy, as well as all sorts of others. And what does this one mean? Is it simply the opposite? Is it productive and unproductive? Or might you be in a situation where, well, the team is kind of happy because it's productive, but it's also unhappy because it's unhealthy and it's overworking or stressing each other out and being unfair with each other. So I suppose I'm inviting you to imagine that in using this with a team, actually getting the team to begin to explore how we're judging how this team is doing is a question in itself, and itself can be a profound question. There's another learning here, which these words themselves can follow the arc. So if we look at more of something and less of something again, if I don't pay any attention to productivity, it's unlikely to be productive. So we need to pay attention to productivity. But can I become so focused on productivity that I'm not noticing myself or my colleagues are burning out? If we don't pay any attention to happiness, well, it may happen, but it's less likely to. So let's pay attention to some happiness. But if we spend all our time trying to be happy and we're afraid of conflict, we're afraid of argument, we're afraid of calling each other out, then actually, is this a really high-functioning team? And actually, ultimately, are we happy? Yeah. Same with health. If we don't pay any attention to health, we're going to have problems. But we can become obsessive about it. We can start worrying about it. Have I had enough sleep? Have I had enough calories? Have I had too many calories? Have I worked too hard? What's my heart rate doing at the moment? And. Could be all very useful feedback, but I'm sure you're aware, if not in your own life of others, of actually, am I just overanalyzing this? Yeah. We can make ourselves unhealth worrying about our own health. Anyway, there we go. So let's introduce these ideas. There is this space at the top. Call it the flourishing zone. I used to call it the flourishing point, the very top of the arc. And it was a wonderful coach, 𝗲𝗵𝗶 𝗫𝘁𝐺. And I was working with her around this as I was introducing this to professional coaches around the world as a kind of a pre-beta experiment in terms of, does this work for you? And in the thing we were looking at, she put herself over here somewhere. And I asked what I thought was a good coaching question. And I said, okay, 𝗲𝗵𝗶, what's going to get you to there? And she said, it doesn't matter, Neil. And I said, what do you mean it doesn't matter? And she goes, well, it's kind of good enough, isn't it? If you notice this, where this green oval crosses across this orange line, that's the space it covers. If you come across this way and see what difference does all of this make, it's that. And when I drew this, I actually had to put a piece of paper on my screen saying, is it really that small? And yes, it's really that small. So if the arc follows this, life is kind. It gives us a lot of wiggle room. Anywhere in this sort of space is kind of okay. It's all right. We may have a different view, but there's no point having an argument with someone saying, no, we ought to be here. No, we ought to be here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's only going to make this much difference. So let's move on. Let's just, embrace diversity, whatever. Yeah. You see the idea. Okay. There's this other idea, the gap. My culture tends to love more. Everything is about growth, more. If this is good, do it more often. Yeah. If you've got one, have two. If you've got two, have four. If you've got four, have four that have got more functionality, or the smaller or sexier or this or that or whatever it may be. Just more, more, more. This implies there's a problem. So if we take this in the context of a team, let's say, if we're working for so many hours, if we don't work for very, very many hours on this project, we may not get a lot done. We work for more hours, we get more done. We've got more to do, we try to work more hours. We think we ought to be this productive, but actually we're getting tired. Or we're so focused on getting the work done, we stop communicating or something similar. And actually, a gap begins. And again, in my culture, it tends to be quite heroic, quite muscular. And it is no pain, no gain, work harder, let's double down, off we go, hup, hup, hup. We really need to focus. And the gap just gets bigger. And you may experience it as burnout or as frustration, but this gap of where we think we ought to be in terms of productivity or happiness or whatever it is, and where we actually are, starts really opening up. I've never had more time-saving devices, and yet I feel so time poor. What's going on? Well, this is it. Okay, so I'll call that the gap. Okay. So here is then the whole picture. Now, if I take the ICF approach, the client is expert and guide, and it's about serving their agenda, and I can wholly subscribe to that myself. We're not playing with a team because it's not our team. We are serving others. Though we may have been in service of other things that are important to us in terms of ethics and social responsibilities and environmental responsibilities. But the essence being, how do we do this in a way that we're not imposing our view on the situation? So there are these 5 freedoms, if you're looking to play with this, to bear in mind. The descriptions on this x-axis. What are these? Allow people to decide for themselves. Facilitate the conversation that makes this clear. And by the way, I've spoken a lot here today about more and less. It may be its opposite. So for example, it may be between challenge and safety, for example. If it's too safe, it's no good. If there's too much challenge, we're scared. It's no good. There's a space between challenge and safety. So you can use this between poles if you wish. But anyway, point being is let the people decide. Explore and let them decide. What does this mean? Don't assume ourselves what good team working is. How are they going to know? How are they going to be judging this? What subjects, if any, are absolute no's? We'll be exploring this in just a minute or two in a team context. But for example, in a personal context, one of the things that often comes up here, what's an absolute no? Abuse. It's not as though some abuses, some abuses, more abuse is okay and then too much. No, look, abuse is just abuse. Stop it. It doesn't apply to the arc. We just do not do abuse. So what may be true for the people that you're working with, the team or community you're working with? And that can particularly come in with what may be an organization's values or community's ethics or religious beliefs or political beliefs. Some things are just going to be no's for the group you're with. What's the shape of the curve? I've drawn it here as a nice, neat arc, but it may be that it rises quickly and goes slowly. It may be that you're going to need a lot before you get takeoff and then it falls slowly. It could be all sorts of shapes. And again, the key thing, like many reflexive practices, is to invite the thinking, and the thinking unlocks the learning. So this isn't about telling. Often,
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. There is a request that if you could speak a little bit more slower, because the audience is not native English speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do they want me to go back anywhere?
Okay. No, it's the request is to have that in mind.
Thank you very much.
There wasn't a request to go back to something, but that's to keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you for considering that.
No, thank you so much for interrupting me. I get very excited and passionate, and I'm sorry that I'll start speaking too quickly. Thank you for stopping me there.
No, wait, Michaela requests if you can go back to point 3, please.
Point 3, absolute no's. There will be times when people say, no, that does not apply. The curve, the arc does not apply. So I gave an example which often comes up when working with people around abuse. Abuse in the workplace, physical abuse, verbal abuse, something along those lines. That is not a case of less of it is a problem and more of it is a problem, but there's a good bit in between. It simply is, if this exists, it's a problem. And so the arc does not apply. Yeah. So there are some things where that is just, this is a non-negotiable. We either do this or we don't do this. It is not following this idea of you can have too much or too little of something. There will be some things where you just say, no, that just doesn't happen here, or no, we always do that. That is not negotiable. That's the idea of this. And that's why it's the arc of nearly everything. There are thousands and thousands of things where this is true. How much exercise should I get? Whatever, all sorts of things here. The way that I eat, how much time should I spend reading doom scrolling? If I don't look at what's going on in the world, I'm out of touch. If I spend too long, I'm going to say loads and loads and loads of things in all sorts of life and in this team working. But there are some things that are absolute no's. Number 4 was the shape of the curve. I've drawn it as a smooth line, and it just may be for some situations, some people, it is not. It may be that it starts slowly and then rises. It may be that it rises quickly and then falls swiftly. It may be all sorts of things. So allow the people you are with to look at whatever they're looking at and define what's that like for them. And the flourishing zone. How much space have we got here? Where is here? And the big question is, how do we know when we are here? And by the way, here's something which wasn't in the script. I love 3 questions, which I often find very useful. So if this helps anybody, what could go wrong? What could mean we could fall out of this place? What would be the first signs of it going wrong? And what do we do when we notice the first signs? It's 3 simple questions, but it tends to keep people in good places. What could go wrong? What would be the first signs? What do we do when we notice the first signs? Working as a team, working with relationships, anything. I love those questions. Anyway, there we go. Right. Okay. So as I said, there are so many possible questions here. As a team, how much time or money, attention should we spend on this? How much data should we gather before we talk about it or before we decide? How effective or productive are we being, and how will we know? And are we judging the success of the team in the same way? Is somebody wanting to be happy here and see career success? Somebody wanting productivity and getting a project delivered? Somebody wanting something else? What's going on? How much should we discuss things before deciding? How big should this team be? Is that an art? 3 people is too small? 5 is good? 8 is too many? 12 and it becomes a conference? How much should we own this? So this is a live question with a team I'm working with at the moment. I do quite a bit around culture. And the essence is that the team that's responsible for keeping this cultural work alive, if they own it, the culture becomes their thing. But culture has to be owned by everyone. Everyone is a culture shaper. So they need to own the process of keeping this alive for everyone, but everyone needs to own the idea of affecting the culture. But then some other things that are often put up here as important with the team, and again, how involved, how engaged. Can it be too safe? Yeah. Can we be too challenged, but what's the right amount of challenge? Can I be too committed to something and actually I ought to be spending some time on something else? Lots of questions. So I'm going to open it up now to we were going to have chat rooms, but they proved to be quite difficult to manage. So I'm just going to put these questions to you. Number 1, how do you think you might integrate this with your work? And where might there be examples that you know of where this doesn't apply? And just throwing it open, and anything else. Please put it in the chat. Do you like this? Do you hate this? It's got you thinking about something else? What's going on for you? I'm going to come off sharing. So just repeat those.
If I may jump in, this is the second time that I do the session with you, and there are new ideas every time. But this is the thing, there are always new ideas every time because, for example, and I'm inspired because I have been in all the sessions of the summit and suddenly everything connects with each other. I was thinking, we referenced, for example, on Tuesday, the drama triangle and how we want to stay in the winner triangle. So what if we connect that? So that flourishing part of the arc is when we are at the best, at the winner's triangle, and we don't fall into becoming, the hero or another role in the drama triangle.
Yes.
And
brilliant.
And there is another, if we focus now on team coaching, there is a question that comes to mind. We just show to the team and we can ask them, okay, if this part of flourishing is where we are at our best, how are we there? What's happening? And they start describing, so they start visioning, and they can think about, our best moments, the stories that we have, or something that we want to create. And then we say, okay, so now we know, we have the vision of that space where we are at our best, and we have the description of what happens there. And then the question becomes now, how did we get there?
Mm-hmm.
And these are standards. And then how we make sure that we stay there also.
Absolutely. And that's where these three questions that I offered come in as well. Absolutely. How do we know we're getting this right? How are we judging team success? That smiley face and sad face. What does this actually mean for you? We were talking about communities yesterday,
Oh, yes. Sorry, I cannot help but saying that because it's about contracting that I love. Yes, Fernando, brilliant. Yes. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
I'm just going to go with this. Okay, the flashing zone is okay. Will the slides be shared? My understanding is yes. So Katerina, Carl, they're going to be shared? Yep. Okay. Art's going to stay with you. Okay, Helen, good. Play with it. Fantastic. Very useful, including everything in life. Absolutely. How much time should I spend with the children? When's too little? When's too much? When's in the middle? How much time should I spend with my partner or my parents? How much time should I have for myself? It's all in there. Okay, love it. Client sees themselves as a family. Yeah. Thank you. Really makes you think. So, Will, I shared this with a very experienced coach, and they said, "Oh, that's dark." Oh, okay, that's interesting. But there is a side to this. So there's a quote from Shakespeare in Hamlet that nothing is either good nor bad, but that we think it's so. And it starts saying that some of these things, actually, I may have framed this as good or bad, but actually it's just what's the right amount in the right place at the right time. And Daniel Goleman starts his book, Emotional Intelligence, which was an absolute groundbreaker in its time, with a quote from Greece. I can't remember which philosopher it was, Katerina, so I'm sorry if I'm doing a disservice here. But it said something along the lines of, it is not wrong to be angry, but you need to be angry with the right person at the right way, at the right time, and in the right amount. And it's that. Anyway, there we go. So yes, it does make you think. Okay, love how visual explores. Yes. So the visual side's really interesting as well. So it can really help people, especially for many people, have a visual mind. Some people don't have a visual mind. So you may want to transfer this in some way. So you can create it as a line, okay, so where do you think we are in terms of being committed to this project, people? And get people on a line. And where are they along that line? How does that fit a curve? Too much or too little? I know some people that are doing, for example, more and more coaching in nature. And they like this because you can easily just draw it in the dirt or in the sand and just talk about it just while you're out for a walk somewhere. Contracting to utilize the transition of a new CEO. Whitney, I'd love to hear more about how that's, if we've got, I think we've got almost 2 minutes before I need to hand back, Whitney. So can I just hand the floor to you? How would you use this in contracting transition of a new CEO?
Yeah, the executive team has just welcomed on a new CEO.
Right.
And I'm thinking about utilizing this arc to start the contracting conversation to build new norms and what is expected and desired in forming a new team.
Brilliant. There we go. Thank you.
It's so accessible. Like, it's brilliant. Everyone can relate to different parts of life and business, and I'm looking forward to see how it works.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, okay, I'm going to get to the next slide. And again, it's just the ask, will they be shared? Yes, these slides will be shared. Talking of which, I'll go back to sharing here. Okay. So, a few things. When using this with a team, it can be good to ask people individually first, so they don't immediately get caught up in a group think, trying to be safe by going where everyone else goes. Though you do need to be culturally considerate here. But I do advise trying to find out where people think they are before they've seen or heard anybody else, and then exploring that together. You may want to share it by marking it on a shared image. Let's just draw this. It's a very easy thing to draw on a flip chart, for example. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? This may be my stuff bleeding through here, but recognize that everyone's reality is real for them. So this is about being curious, listening to understand. And yeah, it may go far deeper than you imagine. So anyway, a number of people have said, Oh, this is good, but I'd like to play with it first. So if you are interested in that, please write to Muriel, my wonderful virtual assistant, and just say you're interested. Just put that in the heading. You can give a bigger description. And then we'll look at bringing it together. But we can then see what do we need to do about time zones and availabilities and other things as well. If you do want to use it and share it, please do freely. It's here for the world, you know. But you know, to Whitney and anyone else using this, please share the stories. This is like having a child that goes out into the world, yeah, and he gets up to adventures, and occasionally it's like nice when it writes home, and I get to hear what he's up to, yeah. So, but use it freely. There are more resources at my overall site, 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 do, take this and use it and do what they want. So I've had a guess at what I think might be useful, but obviously reality is going to be different. So if your reality is different, tell me. And if I can, and if it fits my arc of everything, it's not a huge amount of work for nothing, but I will do what I can to support you. Right, there we go. I don't know how we're doing for time.
We have time. Oh, we have time for questions, for comments.
Right.
So we are lucky. May I say also that it's so different, the experience that I had the first time in the first session with the today, because I don't know if you remember, we had experienced frustration, like I don't know, it's like, is it? There was a lot of curiosity, but it had, okay, my brain cannot work with that. Can my brain work with that? And there were moments of frustrations in the group that we were talking about it. And today it's so different, which means to me that the more we stay with something and explore and become curious, we might find alternative ways, creative ways. Maybe it's because Julian opened up for creativity to find ways. But I don't want to monopolize. I would like to hear from everybody.
𝗬𝗵𝗲. It's all about balance. Yes, Laura. I think you could say that, very much so. Yeah. First thought, such a heavy topic. There we go. Isn't it interesting? Yeah, it's so different. Oh, what have we got here? Old Chinese proverb. Too much is as bad as too little. Thank you. I hope I can get the chat from that. Yes. There we go. There it is. Brilliant.
Okay, there is a question.
Okay.
How does stress apply to the arc?
Right. First off, I am not God. I do not know the answer to all these questions. The important thing is the person that's asking the question to explore. Is there points where there's too little stress and it's just not in their attention? It's not getting to them at all. Is there a point of too much stress where it affects their health, their ability to think? Is there a point of actually a bit of stress is actually quite nice and quite good? And you could get into when does excitement become anxiety or fear, or when it's something for someone to explore on themselves. I think it's a great question, but if I was working with the client, I'd really hold them to that. Well, you tell me about your journey with too little or too much stress. Yeah, great question though.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question like this, or do you prefer to work per chat only, Neil?
Carl, do what you want. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm noticing, and perhaps I'm not correct, but I'm noticing certain similarities between your fantastic arc and the core quadrants from 𝗏𝗏, where there is a very nice description of what it takes to go from a quality into an allergy. And if I relate that a bit to your arc, when is there enough communication, quality, and when is there too much communication, then it becomes allergic, and you can have that with trust, with all possible kind of things. Blind trust, for instance, is not always a safe thing. Now, what I appreciate in your arc is it is much simpler, honestly, to work with. It is much more accessible to work with than those quadrants, and I say that with full respect to both models, but that is what touches me. You can work with that model in a very, very easy way, face to face, in teams. You can visualize it on the ground. You can make people walk on that arc, and so on. That's what I wanted to share with you. Maybe you relate to that. I don't know.
I can relate to it in a number of ways. I'm minded of a phrase I often share, and I wish I could remember where I first came across this. All models are wrong, but some are useful. All models are wrong, but some are useful. A model is like a map. A map can map the territory, but it's not the same as the territory. But what I like about it, Carl, is the way that you saw how this fitted together. And what I love to do is create tools that people can blend, and I use the word integrate. And that's great. And I think there is something which, when something gets nearer and nearer the truth, you find that it maps more and more things, almost inevitably, because if it's nearer a truth, then it must have more resonances around the world with other things that people have noticed elsewhere. And this isn't the first time that anyone's drawn an arc. There was my tech wizard shared a video of me with me a couple of weeks ago of Diary of a CEO, the latest Diary of a CEO, which is a very popular podcast. And it had, I think it was talking to 𝗏𝗃, and they were talking about effort. And he says, oh, it's almost like you can have too much effort or too little effort, and there's a place in between. And it's like, yes. So it turns up a lot. I think the difference here is saying it turns up in just so many ways, so many ways. How simple should something be? Yeah, it can be too simple, you know, and it can be too complicated. So how simple? It's just all sorts of things. You know, how much conflict should we have? Well, if we don't have any conflict, if we're scared to confront each other, that itself could be a problem. But it can then, using that example, so I'm speaking quickly, using that example is worth opening up. What do we mean by these sorts of words? But anyway, there we go.
Talking about combinations of tools, the idea of combining with Niels wheel, in one of the sections, you have, for example, purpose. And if I take the example of startup teams, especially from young students that we work a lot, is like they can be too focused on the purpose, or they can be too in love with the product they are creating, the solution to serve that purpose. And either it's like it takes all the energy and the focus and they forget, okay, you know, how we are going to bring that to the world now? How do we take it either to market or to practical, like to who needs to have that? Or it is about, it needs to be perfect and perfectly serve this purpose before it goes out to the world. So yeah, thank you for giving us the idea of the combinations of tools. And that was also something that came from many of you on the chat. That's awesome.
And thank you for Pauline here. It reminds me of I hope I pronounced this correctly, the 𝗧𝗵𝗿 curve. Yeah, relation between arousal, stress, anxiety, and performance. Absolutely. No stress, you may not perform. Some of it useful. Too much, we choke. Okay. Where's mine? Where's my flourishing zone? Where's the team's flourishing zone? Yeah. And if I'm responsible as the leader in the organization, or even just as a team member, or as the coach, facilitator, whatever, you know, what does that mean for us? You know, what should I bring to this so that we get there? Anyway, right. Simplicity, close to the core. Oh, lovely.
Close to the core, and this is awesome. It's fantastic. We can continue for hours. I was saying before we started to Neil how it makes it so comfortable to be in a conversation with him, and everything flows much better, and our creativity is at its best when we are in this relaxed space. Now, we need to go. Before we go, we want to give a warm thank you to all of you for being here with us, for your engagement and your input and your ideas in the chat. A big thank you to Neil for giving the world, the coaching world, with another very useful, awesome tool. Thank you, Carl, for co-hosting this session with me. And just seconds left, if you would like to leave final words or impressions or key takeaway from today's session. Before we close, we are really, really happy that you are still here with us all in this 5th day. And I'm already seeing how that can be applied to the next session that we are having right now. So I'm already I know I'm going to bring it there. So thank you very much. Okay.
Lovely. So as handy as a pocket on a shirt. Fantastic.
Exactly. Well, that's it
Thank you, everyone.
from us from this session. We wish you a wonderful rest of the day. I hope we will see you in the next session right now, or maybe on Monday. In any case, have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Thank you again, Neil. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.